Hey guys, it's Jason at hardmoneybankers.com and REI360.net. I have a great guest to introduce to you today. His name is Mike Green from Restorahouse, located in Baltimore, Maryland. Mike's been one of the leading real estate investors in the Baltimore area. He's probably done close to 500 deals. I'll let him chime in on that in a second. Over the years, he's done wholesales, flips, rentals, auctions. Really great resource across the boat of different types of deals. But it's really interesting because the reason I wanted to bring Mike onto the show today is that he's recently changed up his mindset. He's changed up a lot of things inside his business that actually most investors probably would not think about on a regular basis. You know, most investors think, let's go, 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 go. Let me do more deals, more deals, more deals, more deals. And Mike has recently kind of changed his thought process. I want him to share some of these really interesting things with you today. So without further ado, welcome, Mike.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up? Thanks for being on the show. I certainly appreciate it. Why don't you go ahead and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got into real estate investing?
Yeah, so I think like many people, I got into real estate investing watching way too much Flip This House. I literally was down Ocean City and it was a rainy weekend and I ended up watching like a complete like 3-season rerun of Flip This House. You know, like Than Merle and Armando Montalongo, and I must have watched 40 episodes over a weekend. I was fairly addicted from there. Within the next 4 or 5 years, obviously having that seed planted into my brain, I started seeking out ways to get into real estate. I used to own a flooring business where I sold hardwood floors, carpet. So I wouldn't say I was really in construction. I kind of, I knew how to do floors, that was it, but I didn't know how to do anything else. So when I did have the opportunity to go to a little school in Baltimore where they taught some investment stuff about 10 years ago, I took that up, and from there, about 10 years ago, I started flipping houses. Since then, I've flipped about 470 houses that I've rehabbed, but I've done about 1,000 transactions on top of that we've actually auctioned off or wholesaled to other investors. So, you know, a lot of transactions every year. 15, we bought 150 houses, flipped about 70 of them, and the rest were just wholesaled or auctioned off to other investors who needed the deals. Big thing that we wanted to talk about today, and I think me and you, Jason, we've had a lot of talk about, was I hired a new coach about 6 months ago who is an E-Myth-based coach and about 20 years experience and worked with a lot of real estate guys. And I'm also a business coach, so when I hire guys now, I'm looking for like the next level. You know, you don't want to hire someone that's so far above your head because he really won't do a lot for you. He'll talk to you and talk to you about things you don't truly understand yet. But one thing that he helped me with was the fact that I was doing a ton, but my ratios and margins weren't all that great. I mean, we were bringing in about $1 million in net income that I split with a partner, so I made about $500,000, which I worked 80 hours a week to accomplish that. Very, very good income. I never would complain about that. However, it wasn't very sustainable. It was burning my partner out. Certainly for me, I was a little bit of a obsessive sicko, so I kind of enjoyed the 80-hour work weeks, but I know at some point it wore on personal relationships and stuff like that, lack of having any, because 80 hours a week doesn't really leave room for, you know, spending time with your wife or your kids or, you know, just doing the things that you're meant to do in life, right? I mean, the whole reason. And I got so overwhelmed and so what I would say like caught up and highly focused in trying to flip more and more houses that I never even took time to sit and say, could I do less and make more money? And so what happened 6 months ago as I hired this coach is I ended up selling my half of my business to my business partner, Jay Palmisano, and he's scaling down his business a little bit, and I went and started Restorahouse. Our old company used to be Trusted Home Buyers. The new company is doing about 25 deals a year. I'll still make about the same $500 to $600K in net income. I'm working about 30 hours a week, and I'm averaging double what I was averaging on the homes that I did with Jay in my old company. And I also only have about somewhere roughly around 10 grand a month in expenses. The old business had 100 grand a month in expenses. So, and that's the first year. So 5 years into it, it's going to scale up, but it's really never going to scale past what the current team can do. So I was able to bring 2-3 people. I'll never get it bigger than 30 houses a year just because at some point what I'm going to do instead of making it bigger and doing more volume, I'm going to focus on more profit. And I'm going to do that through finding better deals, cutting my costs down, just being more efficient, getting in and out faster, keeping my hard money costs down because I'll actually get in and out the deal quicker, which keeps my costs down.
Sure. Yeah. And we're gonna do a recap related to the way your old business was run compared to your new business is run, so everyone can see exactly how this makes sense. So let's talk about a little bit on your old business, like how much, either how much marketing dollars you had to put in, how many employees did you have, things like that, how many leads you had to run on a regular basis in order to really get to that top
So
level.
this is like your Bruce Buffer. This is the tail of the tape. The tail of the tape. So essentially what's happening is in the old company, we would spend about 15 grand a month in marketing. We would generate somewhere between 50 to 70 phone calls a week. And that required two full-time salespeople to run those. And then me and my business partner, Jay, would have to assist them in acquisitions and closing. So it was a pretty decent-sized team to run that many leads and close deals. So that's number one. Number two, in addition to that, we had a total of 11 employees, which covered about 60 grand a month in income, plus building expenses, car expenses, everything, insurances, all the things you could think of. And on a really bad month, it ran at about 100K. In a really good month, we ran at about 90K in expenses. However, we should have been flipping about 5 houses a month at about $30,000 each. Then it would have made a lot of sense. What would happen some months is because the volume would not actually make us better, it actually created what I call a law of diminishing returns. Usually have these economy of scales. I made fun that we had the de-economies of scales. Like we scaled up and it got harder to do because there's only so many amazing opportunities. And as you start filtering through those, you just start going to what I call B opportunities and C opportunities. And when you have a company that is that big, you have to start sourcing your deals in areas I call B areas or C areas. And then you start, the risk reward balance starts to get out of balance. It's just not where it is. When you do 10 to 20 houses, there's more than enough opportunity to do all A deals or things we would consider to be A deals. So old company, we had 10 employees, spent about 100 grand a month, 15 grand a month in marketing, ran about 70 leads. That would actually, and we bought 150 deals in 2015, which generated $1 million in net income. Million, like 50 to be exact, right in that ballpark, 54 if we're going to be really exact. The new business, we're getting really down. Someone's in the background really appreciates the numbers. I actually know that. I'm just kind of rounding it up for the audience. But so the new business in the first 6 months has made about $300,000 in net income. I'm only spending roughly about 10 grand a month, so a lot less. And that's
so
10
all
grand
overhead's 10 grand. That includes marketing, everything.
That's
10 grand.
Employees, marketing. Okay. This beautiful office you see me in right now, which happens to.
It's a nice lazy boy.
Yeah, exactly. At 5 o'clock becomes my couch. Before that, it's actually not my couch. It's Restorahouse International. That's currently where we work out of, or Panera Bread. Depending if it's lunchtime. Good internet connection. So we keep the costs down. So everything I did, I got really, really what I would say obsessed with cutting costs because I really wanted to test the boundaries of how much I didn't have to do in order to make money in this business. Like I don't even have business cards. I'm 6 months in. I don't even have business cards. And to be honest, it's only $50, but like I haven't found a reason to actually have them yet. For me personally.
Sure.
So it's little things like that I'm keeping the cost down. Anything I can do. I have my office at my house. I don't have business cards. I'm not spending money. My whole business is ran through Google Drive, which doesn't cost me anything. It's ran off my laptop. I just don't have like anything you need. I'm printing off a $150 printer that scans and does everything it needs to do. And all my employees now are actually not employees. They're 1099 and they're going to be commission based now. So the big thing that I learned with the old business was what really started to hurt us is the months when we would do 3 rehabs and we would spend 100K and then 3 of those would only make 70K in income, we'd lose 40 or 50 grand. And emotionally, that created a toll that was very hard for me and my business partner to sustain and be able to manage. Even if the next month maybe we made 250 grand. Over long term it worked out and we made the money, but there would be these months where it felt like we were going under. But the reality long term, we were killing it and doing very well. In the new business, I don't have that issue because I spend so little money every month and everyone gets paid when I get paid. So if a deal closes, then everyone gets paid when the deal closes. And I'm paying out the absolute minimum. Things are being finished before I'm paying.
Yeah, makes sense. What is your goal or what's your average amount of money you're making per flip now? Because they're all A properties now, right? There's no B's and C's.
Absolutely. So my business plan I put together was to do 25 properties at 30K each, which would run me, just running the numbers real quick, would put me at about $700,000 in gross income, and I figured I'd have about $200,000 in total expense roughly. And that's paying me too, by the way, 80 grand a year. because I actually paying myself out of that. It's about 120 for, and then also my paycheck on top. And I would live off that 80 grand a year, and then the rest of the money would stay in my business as retained earnings, so that way I could literally start to build up my cash position. So far in the first 6 months, I told you, we've completed five rehabs, and we've made $240,000 on the first 5 rehabs. We're averaging $44,000 a house right now. At THB, right before we traded it off, we were averaging 21. So that gives you, it's a huge difference. It's more than double.
Yeah, and one actually really big thing related to this entire topic, and we're going to expand on this a little bit, but one big thing that I think heard you say this about a week ago, and it makes a lot of sense, and I think about this inside our business as well, is doing 150 deals a year is a ton. And keep in mind, the market's not going to be like it has been over the last 8 years. So if you can run a business off $10,000, which isn't a ton of money for overhead, and you can run a business with only doing 2 transactions, picking up 2 new transactions a month or maybe a little bit more, that's a hell of a lot easier than 10 at a time, because it is hard no matter how big that market is. And at the same time, like you said, you have all this that you need to support. So, the difference between closing, doing 10 deals and 8 deals is, you're done. Like that, those 2 deals is where you're making all your profit in. But, only doing 2 or 3 deals at a time, and it doesn't matter what market we're in, and no matter how crappy or how good the market is, you can find 2 deals. Right? It's easy to do. And I think that's the kind of the biggest fear of as the market changes, and I think the market is changing, and I think in a lot of areas we are towards the top. But at the same time, like, I'm not concerned that there's not going to be any deals. I am concerned that there's not going to be tons and tons and tons and tons of deals. But there's always going to be enough that it will all go around for each of us.
Yeah, so you make a really good, valid point, which I've focused a ton on. As I've become a business coach a few years ago, I've had to learn a lot about financials. I currently work with a CFO coach who's teaching me a lot of the ratios that are very important in business. And what I realized is I was violating a lot of the just basic rules of finance. I was just doing things on margins that did not make sense, even though I was making $1 million a year in net income. Who can argue with that? Oh, well, you're making $1 million in net income. The problem was that what it took to sustain that was just literally just too risky, honestly. Any turn, it could just easily turn into $500,000, and then it could have turned into, just not enough to really support my business partner and the money we want to make. So the reality of the whole thing is this, is that if you learn to create what I call higher profit margins, and you kind of lead with revenue, and so the big thing for me now is I don't focus on, I want to just backtrack one bit so this all makes sense.
Sure.
There was one rule that I learned when I was working with my CFO coach, who's a really smart guy and really has helped me a ton with understanding stuff that I didn't understand, is he told me that one of the biggest mistakes that all business owners make is that when they think they want to make more money, they think the way to do so is to increase volume. And he says you never do it by increasing volume, you do it by increasing profit. So you always first make sure that you're making the absolute maximum profit that you can make doing a rehab. So the reality, making anywhere between 35 to 50 grand a house. For an average house, it's 200 to 350,000. If you're making that, I would say you're at the top end of profit margins. Then if you're making 20 to 25, you're at the low end of profit margins. Or you're, obviously for people that are successful, then there's going to be people that make nothing and lose money, obviously. But I don't count them because we won't call them the people who are going to be flipping for any period of time.
Agreed.
So keeping that in mind, that when you're at 20 to 25,000, yes, that's a very good amount of money, but you are at the, where I would call you're in the danger zone, essentially. You're in that zone that where a few things go wrong, the economy changes a little bit, things change, a contractor rips you off, or you have a bad month, you make a mistake. Let's just call it, you're human, right? You do something, we all make mistakes, none of us are perfect. Well, you're not leaving any room in your business for any kind of rainy day. And when you're at the lower end of the profit margin. So the big thing we spent a lot of energy and time talking about was, let's not increase volume, let's increase profit. So his goal for me was, let's get to averaging 50K a house. When we do that, then we can talk about doing more houses. Only if we can maintain that 45 to 50K a house. Which, by the way, my business plan was all built on 30K because my mind could not even imagine. I had convinced myself that 45 and 50K was not even possible anymore.
Sure.
And I bought every deal thinking I was going to make X dollars, and then when I actually got them all done, because I came in under budget, most of them I rehabbed in 4 to 6 weeks, and then I sold them instantaneously. So I was in and out of the deal in 2.5, 3 months. So, and I usually run all my numbers based on 5 months. Well, that difference is like 10 grand. I mean, that's a huge difference in cost that I don't have. So everything's about really increasing, making sure that you're at the absolute maximum perfect ratios for your business for flipping before you start increasing volume. Because I hear everyone that says I'm struggling and I'm not making enough money, their solution is let me do more. Yeah. And all you're doing is you're repeating something that's not doing well already. And it actually makes it worse, because you might be able to run your business model that's not perfect at 10, 20 houses a year, but at 40 houses a year it might implode.
Yeah, I mean, this is some really high level stuff that we're talking about that most people just don't understand. But I mean, our lending business is very, very similar. And believe me, there's a lot of, at the time that we're shooting this video, there's a lot of capital in the space right now. And, sometimes, the carrot's dangled of like, hey, we could do twice as much volume, but make smaller margins, get cheaper capital from bank institutions. Not doing any of that. Stick to the business model, make the most you can out of it. Why would you do 2 deals to make the same amount of money that you can make 1 on? It really makes zero sense, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, because I know a lot of investors that don't execute well, and they think the solution is let's just do more and more. I need to buy more and more, and it's stop trying to buy more stuff. That is not the answer. Do not buy more until you execute perfectly. If you hit your budget, if you hit your time frame, if you bought it and you bought it at the price you needed, you renovated at the exact cost you needed to, and you sold it at the exact price you wanted to, if you accomplished all of those things, you made exactly what you're expecting to from day one, cool. Maybe that is your next step. But 99% of investors out there are just not. It's a tough game. Like if you're watching this, it's not like a stab at you that you're not performing well. But what is a stab is if you believe that you need to go do more and more and more without honing in on your trade. Start executing better, and after you execute better, then you can start working that up.
Yeah, my old business model was like, look, we'll try to, my whole thing that I worked towards, how I went from doing 15, 20 houses a year to doing 70 a year, was I created a business model that said that I could be financially wealthy and I could make enough money to pay people to take over my position at 100 houses a year at 25K. The reality was every time we kept doing more, our numbers kept going down. So it was almost like at some level we were doing more, but our ratios that protect us started getting thinner, and then we still made good money, but I could have argued that if we were really highly efficient, amazing business, we'd have made $2 million a year. And if that would have been the case, me and him would still be partners. We wouldn't be looking for any new solutions. We wouldn't have scaled back down. But we just realized that it just was impossible to do that many houses together and keep everything efficient. And honestly, hiring people, every time you put a layer of people in between you, the rainmaker, the person who made the business amazing in the first place, you get what I call, it's a law of diminishing return for sure, because I'll get someone that I literally will do my job at 60 to 70% of me, and then I have to pay them. So this is like the double whammy. So I'm getting a less return, and then actually it costs me money to make them go do that job versus me doing it for free and doing it at 100%. So in my new business, I do everything except for, and I have everyone assist me on the things that can be done at 100% that I don't have to do. Anything that they can't do at 100%, then I personally still do it. And that's why with my new business model, as I've evaluated it, I know I can't go over 25 houses a year, and that's a lot for most people, but when you're used to doing 70, 25, it's like I'm sleeping doing 25. I feel guilty almost at some level, but that might be 10 for the next guy or 5 for the next guy.
That's called discipline. That means like, this is a B property, it doesn't meet my model anymore. I'm only doing A properties because this is the amount of money I need to make. Discipline's hard, and a lot of people, their chase is finding the next deal and the next deal, the next deal, and they don't think about their bottom line of how much they're making. They're just like, oh, this is a great deal, I can't turn it down. We're in a mindset of every good deal you got to do, and that's just not the case. And to back up, related to you being involved in everything in your business, so you are involved in everything in your business, but you still have somebody on your team that's handling the majority of that action. Unless the hires, right, that's doing the majority of that.
It's the 80-20 rule. You've heard of that before, right? Absolutely. So I do the 20% of stuff that's most important, and I have people on my team that are doing the 80% of stuff that they can do as well as me, or better. And then I do the 20% that really only I can do at that level.
Exactly. All right, so one question that I'd really love to ask everybody, ask any business owner, entrepreneur, because I think it's important, and I'm really big into systems and productivity and things like that. Like, what kind of walk us through a day-to-day? Like, what are the most productive things that you're doing on a regular basis? And just walk us through kind of what a typical day would look like.
Yeah, so it's very different than the old business. I'll walk you through a typical day in the old business and the new
Perfect.
business because
Even
I would love for you to
better.
see the difference. The old business, I woke up at 6 in the morning. I usually worked out till 7. I was in the office by 7:45. I had usually 15 to 16 appointments a day with people who worked under me, and I would, maybe a half hour each, where like essentially
That's a lot.
managers or people that I want, and I would just do that till about 5 or 6. I come home, eat dinner, then I go back to work for a couple hours, and then go to sleep. And I did that 7 days a week for the first 4 years we were in business, roughly, minus some a week vacation here. I would go like a week a year, maybe a couple of weekends here and there. I thought I was a big shot about 5 years in when I actually started hiring people and started doing that about 5 to 6 days a week. And because then those days off, I didn't know what to do because I was very like narrowly focused, and that's how I worked every day. I worked like I don't know if you could humanly work any more hours, because even the hours where I shouldn't have been working, I was studying, I was learning, I was, increasing my knowledge, which was very important. And then it got to where, so that was kind of back then, my new, it's much funnier because my whole new routine is much more set on what I would call personal growth, right? So me and Dave, who's my acquisitions manager, who also happens to live with me, rents out an apartment. It's part of my house. So he walks up the steps. We're at work at 8:30. Still work out in the morning. We're at work at 8:30, but we spend a half hour doing like pump up music, a lot of affirmations. We meditate for 10 minutes. We just enjoy ourselves for the first half hour of the day and just get our head straight, clear out any negative thoughts. And then we get to work and we jam it out. Like me and him are both intermittent fasting, so like we don't eat until like 1 or 2 o'clock. So we just literally just pound out like almost all of our day's activities by 1 or 2 o'clock before we eat. Because once we eat, we usually our energy level goes down quite a bit. So a lot of Zen stuff going on in new business. Often me and him will go work out like between lunch or 2 o'clock. Then we'll go see houses if necessary, but we're putting about 5, 6 hours a day in, and we're getting just as much done as I was doing in 8, 10, 12 hours a day before.
How many offers do you guys put in typically a day or a week? Let's do it on a
Yeah,
weekly
so
basis.
I mean, obviously the old version I put in about 50 offers a week roughly, and a couple would get accepted. In the new company, we're a little more selective on putting the offers in. We've gotten it down to a science after doing so many deals that we kind of know where we can spend our time, and we can wisely take the time to put offers in, because we're finding that the stuff I go see personally is the stuff we get done more often. So I probably see 5 or 6 houses a week, and right now we're buying about 2 to 3 a month. But they're very good deals. And we're putting in, so Dave looks at everything that's listed on the MLS, 100%, not like sometimes. Every day, his routine is he wakes up at 9 o'clock when we start working. He spends the first 2 to 3 hours of his day just weeding through all the new listings. And anything, then he spends the next hour or two calling people and trying to negotiate deals. Then he spends his next hour or two calling back any leads that we have. So that's pretty much his full-time job. And then I come into play once he filters down to the fact that, okay, this deal makes some sense and it's starting to get in the ballpark. When it gets in the ballpark, then we're good to go.
And then direct mail, bandit sign stuff that's automated.
Yeah, so I mean, automated to the point that, the bandit signs are never automated. We have someone that puts them out, but they, every week we hire someone new because they're hard to keep, and then we have to train them. So it seems like we've struggled. I would tell you my marketing. I had about a $2,500 a month budget for marketing right now, and I've only spent about half of it in the first 6 months. I've not been marketing. Well, because deals have been coming to me through MLS, through wholesalers, through connections. And I'm almost like, I'm not going to market until I have to, kind of thing. If deals keep coming, then it's almost like, why spend the marketing if I don't need to?
Yeah, as long as there's constant deal flow and it doesn't fall in the trap of like market. I have all these deals and then I'm collapsed. But as long as deal flow is constantly up, I agree. I mean, there's always more stuff everyone can be marketing on. I mean, you can always, we're not, being a small business owner, it's not like being a big corporate giant where, hey, I have, $1 million budget that I need to spend and I got to find something to spend it on. Like, we're not looking for ways to spend money if you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking for ways not to spend money. It's just the opposite. Yeah. The new, we do a lot of stuff, and I've also, in the 6 months we've been in business, I've been on 10.5 weeks vacation. So I haven't been on 10.5 weeks vacation probably in the last 7 or 8 years. So that's the difference in the new business. The new business is not, my life doesn't revolve around the business revolves around my life. So first thing my new coach had me do was put together a eulogy and say, Mike, what is it when you're sitting on your deathbed? What is it you want people, or actually when you're dead and they're doing your eulogy, what is it that you want them to say about you and, that you accomplished in life and the cool things you did? What is that? And he said, I want you to make a list. And then when we made that, he's like, here, I want you to figure out how you're going to start doing that now. Like, how will you start doing that in the next year? because you make enough money to do whatever you want, right? He's like, why aren't you doing it? Why haven't you done it in the last 10 years? Well, the simple answer is I was so caught in the hamster wheel of trying to do 100 rehabs a year versus figuring out how to do 10 to 20 rehabs a year and making a tremendous income. Because most of the people get into flipping are looking to make 50 to 150 grand a year. In theory, excuse me, if you were really good at it, in theory, you could flip 3-4 houses a year and do that. I mean, if you're very good at it.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much glorified a way to give yourself a high-paying job instead of getting in business. The reason we all get into business is, yes, to make money, but also to have a good quality of life and have those to interact at the top. And so many people, and I see this firsthand with a lot of business owners, with a lot of real estate investors, I'm like, why are you doing all this? Yeah, you're making this amount of money, but you can go make this money across the street at the business. They can employ you, and you make the exact same amount of salary. You're just giving yourself a job, but you're taking on all the risk, all the liability, all the headaches. So it's smart that it kind of did that. So I got one last question for you, and then we're going to do a quick recap. What do you think your goals are going to be for the next kind of 5 or 10 years? You can either say personal or business or kind of together, but like, where do you see your operation, 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I mean, I can answer this with certainty because part of what I worked on the first 2 months of starting this business with my coach was clarifying all the things I wanted to do personally, so we could then develop the business and make it fund my lifestyle. So the key now is I live this epic lifestyle where I travel all the time. I travel almost 10.5 weeks out of 6 months. I don't even know what that is, but roughly that's like 40% of the time I was traveling and 60% of the time I was here. So I travel all the time. I'm going to be hitting Europe for a month next year. And it's ongoing. And I've learned how to do it really affordably, by the way. I stay in Airbnbs, make friends and stay with them in extra rooms on the couch. I keep it really cheap so I can do more of it. So that's the real key, because obviously it looks like I'm spending $100,000 a month doing what I do, but I literally have done it all my $80,000 a year income, because one of the big things is I cut all the cost out of my life. So where I know I'm going to be in the next 5 years is I'm going to take what I'm currently doing. I'm not going to scale it up very much, but I'm going to keep repeating my amazing business model that will start to make me more money, not because I'm doing more volume, but because at some point I will be all cash, so then I'll cut out my hard money costs in the next 5 to 10 years. Also, I'll be able to find better and better deals as I get more efficient at that. I'll be able to rehab them faster, quicker, because I'll keep building systems to tone it down so that I get in and out fast. Because that's my whole thing now. It's about doing less houses better. Because if I'm making $40K a house times, let's just call it 20 houses, I'm netting $600,000 a year in income, and I'm living on 80. Well, it won't take me very long before I'm an all-cash buyer. I mean, actually, I've run the numbers in the first 5 years. I'll have about $1.5 million in cash in the bank that I can use to start funding my business. The 5 years after that, I can turn that into about $5 to $7 million, which at that point I could do rehabs. I can pay all cash. It's my competitive edge long term. It's the reason I think I'll be rehabbing 30 years from now, is because the one person that I've seen that makes it through all economies are the people that have all cash and the people that have education, people that understand flipping, and they don't just take it as this thing I do, but they're constantly learning and they're constantly evolving, because there'll be many different markets, but smart people know how to navigate through those markets.
Well, debt definitely kills everything, and I can tell you firsthand that if someone gets a hard money loan from us and they have it out for more than 7 months, they are probably not making money on that transaction. And then 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, they're in the hole. 11 months, 12 months, they're really in a bad situation because it's just too expensive, and debt will kill it. So, and one thing we've talked about, and it's a very common topic that my business partner Chris and I also bring up, is your assets will always outgrow the amount of money you can make on a per transaction basis. So you're talking about saving all this money and either buying other properties or investing in other assets. But we all know that $30,000 for a flip, it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but you have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and that's invested in assets, and that just spits out income on a regular basis, and that snowballs, and that grows so much longer than that grows in the background. You don't have to be working for that to grow, and that's powerful. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap for everybody. So, old model that you're in for a while, you had $100,000 in overhead every month, which is a really scary thing, even though you were doing a ton of deals. Your profit margin per deal ideally was still the same. You had some that were more, some were less, but your profits were still good. But obviously the big issue is you had so much darn overhead on this. And it
was $21,000 a house was my average back THB. Yeah, so 46 now, so big difference.
Yeah, so you built yourself this gigantic mousetrap, this gigantic job on a regular basis, and you had to make sure that you guys made as much money as possible because you had $100,000. If you did 0 deals or 20 deals, it didn't matter. You had this debt, this $100,000 overhead, payroll, marketing, everything you had to cover. Kind of scary, right? Until about a year ago, you set up your new operation, Restorahouse, one partner / staff member, and a few other 1099 guys. Overhead's 10 grand. Overhead for being any business, if your overhead is 10 grand, it is freaking nothing. It doesn't matter what business you're in, right? Yeah. And especially for real estate investors that make $30,000 plus per property, right? So, you can cover your entire overhead within the first 2-3 months of the entire year of doing business. So that's obviously a really good thing to think about. It's like, hey, I have enough money in the bank to cover this business for the entire year. So all really good stuff. Obviously, the takeaway for every single person that's watching is doing more deals is not necessarily the answer. It's usually not the answer. And in Mike's case, doing less deals and making more profits has benefited him great. And that really was the solution on this one.
Yeah, and there's one other piece, Jason, that's really fairly important, is that you're going to make a lot of money when you flip houses, but as we make more money, we level up to the amount of money we make. So, we make 100 grand, or let's just say when everyone made 50 grand at some point in their life. Well, they found a way to live on 50 grand. You make 100, you find a way to live on that. You make 500, everyone's like, oh my God. People make 50 are like, you were rich. I was like, no, I found a way to spend $500K after taxes and buy a rental or two, and then go do stupid stuff and buy instant gratification things like toys. And next thing you know, that money's disappeared, and you don't really have a lot of savings. You're not in a very different place than a 100 grand a year guy who actually understands how to manage his money really well. So the key is making this really big difference between what you make and what you spend. The bigger that difference is, the more wealthy you become faster. So for me, it's all about that. I'm constantly figuring out how to make more money and spend less money, because the bigger that difference is, the faster I will have the things I need, and my company will have what I call a durable competitive advantage. That's to quote Warren Buffett. He doesn't buy any companies that don't have durable competitive advantages. So as I try to figure out what that was for flipping houses, honestly, it's a cash position. You got $2-3 million in cash, you're probably going to be in this business a very long time. It's that knowledge. It's a combination of the two.
Yeah, if you want to spend money on something, spend it on an asset, an income-producing asset, or an asset that's going to appreciate over time. Because keep in mind, you make all that extra money, you're putting it into an asset. Yes, it's not going into your pocket, so you may feel like you're poor. Keep in mind, going back to Warren Buffett, he takes a $100,000 salary every year, and is one of the richest people in the world ever. So, if you look at him, you think he's poor. If his current spouse says, hey, like, we only have this much money in our checking account. Yeah, but we have all this because I used all the rest of that money and invested into assets. So all good stuff. All right. So what is the best contact for either yourself at Restorahouse or Dave? What's the best contact for somebody that maybe has some questions for you, or someone that maybe has an opportunity that they could bring your way?
Yeah, absolutely. Email is usually the best contact. If you email us at restorahouse.com or restorahouse@gmail.com, and that's RESTORA house. So it's spelled a little bit different. So restorahouse@gmail.com.
Yeah. Perfect. All good stuff, Mike. I certainly appreciate it.
Cool, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks.